Hey! Today we're working on some headphones. I've got some Sony MDR-7506 headphones here to fix, and the coil is all ruined. Don't do this to your headphone cables. The way this happens is people take these headphones, and then when they go put them away for the day, they do this. And it looks like that. And it looks awful. Why would you do this to your headphones? We're gonna replace the headphone cable. It's gonna be amazing. Also, you may have noticed that it's missing ear pads. The original ear pads disintegrated into nothing and started flaking all over the place, so we're gonna replace those. I've got some nice new replacement ear pads that have like cooling gel in them that I wanted to try, so we're gonna be installing those as well. 9 times out of 10, if you have a set of headphones that is not getting signal to either one of your ears, there's going to be a break in the cable right around here, because this just over time has flexed and flexed and flexed, and it just broke. This particular set of headphones has a connector on it here that is actually reusable, so I can just unscrew the shell of this connector, and we can actually access the solder connections. A lot of headphones have just a plastic molded connector, and it doesn't have a metal shell that you can unscrew, so you're just gonna have to replace that whole connector. I've decided to replace the original ruined cable with this cable that was $12 off at Amazon. It's a little bit shorter, but I kind of like that. And then we've got a 1/4 inch connector on here with a 3.5 millimeter connector inside of that. And then we've got just an unterminated end on the other side. These wires are pre-tinned for me, so that they already have a little bit of solder on the end of them. They're already cut, and they're ready for soldering. All right, first I'm going to use a very small Phillips screwdriver to take the screws out of the ear cup, and I'm going to remove the cover here, and we'll be able to access the driver and the electrical connections. And now we can see our electrical connections, where the headphone wire enters the ear cup, goes up through here, connects to the driver, and then passes signal into the driver, and then through this other cable out across the headband and to the right ear driver. So these 3 wires are coming from the main headphone cable, and I will desolder those now. I'm gonna get my helping hands to hold this in place while I work. Before you start taking something apart, it's always a good idea to take a couple of photos of how it went together in the first place, so you know how to put it back together later. I've got some 6040 rosin core solder. I've got my soldering station. So now I'm going to quickly melt the solder at each of those 3 connections and remove the one wire. You don't want to be on there too long, because the wire inside the headphone driver is very thin and you could burn it up and do some damage. Just get in, get it done, get out. When the solder's melted, I'm using a small screwdriver to pull the wires out, so I don't have to use my fingers in case the wire gets too hot, or I don't want to get my fingers too close to the end of the soldering iron. When you're doing this, be careful not to yank the wire out and then flick little bits of hot solder into your eyes. You can wear safety goggles. I probably should be wearing safety goggles, but I'll be careful. If you're gonna solder a lot inside, you should probably have some kind of ventilation system, like a fan with a filter, or otherwise it might be a good idea to solder out on the porch or in the garage or somewhere. I'm gonna put just a little bit of solder on the tip of my iron to help it melt the solder that's on the headphones. Now that we're successfully disconnected from the driver, I'm going to pull this wire out. And here's the poor ruined cable removed. It actually has a good connector on it. I'll probably save this in my parts bin for a project later. Okay, I'm going to feed the new wire into the ear cup. The wires coming out of the new headphone cable are different colors than the original, although it's probably a safe bet that the copper wire is ground and the blue wire is for the left ear cup signal and the red wire transmits the right signal. But I'm just going to confirm that with a digital multimeter. So I got my multimeter, we turn it on, set it to continuity. Let's confirm that the probes in the multimeter are actually working. There you go. And I'll put one of my probes on the tip of the 1/4 inch connector, and then we'll see which wire the tip is connected to. All right, I've got a connection to the blue wire and no connection to the red wire and no connection to the copper wire. So yes, that blue wire is where our left signal goes. Then I'll check the ring connection for where the right signal goes. Check the copper wire, nothing. Check the blue wire, nothing. Check the red wire. And we've got a connection. So the right signal is on the red wire. And now we put a probe on the sleeve. That leaves the copper wire for ground, but let's just double check. I check blue, nothing. I check red, nothing. I check the copper wire. And there's our ground connection. You'll notice this solder pad here bridges over to this solder pad, which has the red wire attached to it, which passes signal to the right ear cup. This doesn't actually interact with the left driver at all. It just allows a pass through for that signal to go from your connector on the end of your headphone cable past the left ear driver and onto the right ear driver. And I'll solder that red wire onto that pad. This will be my ground connection for my left driver. You'll also notice that it is connected to this solder pad over here, which has a copper wire coming out of it that goes to the right ear cup and also provides the ground connection for the right driver. I'll solder that on now. Here we have the connection for the left stereo signal. Tiny bit of solder. And again, it's important to get in and out of there quickly so you don't burn up the driver. That all should be working, but before I reassemble everything, I'm going to make sure that I'm getting signal out of both of the drivers before I put everything back together and then realize it doesn't work and then have to take it all apart again and do it all over. So let's connect my Bluetooth receiver and hit play here. All right, we're good there. I'm going to feed my wire through this piece of plastic to help secure it inside the ear cup. We'll put the screws back in. All right, so now we're going to put some new ear pads on this. I've used Wicked cushions before. I like Wicked cushions. I wanted to try something with some cooling gel in it this time, so I got something different. It's this brand calling itself Soulwit, S-O-U-L-W-I-T. We'll see if these are any good. This is interesting. These pads came with this little applicator, and you're supposed to put water in here and then just dab a few drops of water on the ear pads. And it's supposed to give you a cooling sensation. Not sure I'm going to do that, but it might be worth a try. All right, now the object of this game is to get this ridge of rubber inside this groove around the edges of the ear cup. All right, slip that in there, and then just kind of pull and work your way around. There we go. Yeah, I got. And then some more, and then don't spin the cushion too much. Don't tear it in half. I got almost over the lip. All right, and then, oh, don't tear it. And then wiggle, 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 and then wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. I think that's looking pretty good. Ooh, that's plush. All right, let's do the other side. All right, now last time I did the seam on the bottom, so I'm gonna be consistent with that. Make sure the seam on the second pad goes on the bottom. How do I look? Quick, play something. Success! Now, if you do change the ear pads on your headphones, it will change how they sound ever so slightly. And with these, they are a little thicker than the originals, and which is kind of nice because it makes them a little more comfortable, and it pushes the ear cups further away from my ears. I have kind of bigger ears, so it's comfortable for me. And it gives me a little bit more isolation too, because it squeezes, it's just a little more pressure on the sides of your head, and it holds the ear pads against your head, and so you get a little more isolation than you did with the original pads. Anyway, I like them a lot. And it does change the sound a little bit, but it doesn't sound bad, so I like them. Well, that's a job well done, everybody. And if you don't mind, now that my headphones work, I've got some tunes to jam to.